All right, this is gonna be another video about road trip driving experiences. How I've driven on road trips several times, like many times before when I first learned how to drive. So I think when I first got my permit, I was like kind of nervous to on rural highway drives, but I overcame it. But um since when my brother and I had our permits, we used to drive out of town quite sometimes. But um like when I first got my first car, which is an Outback. I've driven it everywhere in Arizona, and when I used to do that, I got the feeling of wanting to drive to another state, and even for traveling, like to California or Colorado or any stuff like that. But well, definitely I heard when I heard about a Subaru Outback, the kind of car I have in every different ones. They are all-wheel drive, since I have an all-wheel drive, and then I've gotten feelings of wanting to drive the Outback across country, and 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 even to explore every different states, and like every different scenery and some mountains. Oh, and then there's a nice park called Yellowstone National Park. I think it's in Montana or Wyoming, since I wanted to road trip across country there. How I saw Yellowstone National Park, on one of the YouTubers I've watched, it has the faithful Big Blow thing, and it has bison animals and every tour. So yeah, when I first got my car, I've driven it everywhere in Arizona, like the Flagstaff, Prescott, uh, Sedona, and Yuma, Tucson, Globe, Payson. And then 2 years ago, I used to and sometimes go out of town for a day often. Like first I went to the Grand Canyon because I wanted to go back to Grand Canyon, since it's been for years since I've been there. Since now I've been to Grand Canyon 4 times, which is my first time there at the Grand Canyon is when I was a baby, and with my parents and my grandma on my dad's side. But I don't get to remember it though, being at the Grand Canyon for the first time. But the second time I went to the Grand Canyon is with my grandparents, which was 8 years ago, right around my 17th birthday, since we stayed a couple nights in Flagstaff, and then like first we got to Flagstaff, and then the next day we took a trip to the Grand Canyon, and it was all gorgeous, like the view is all gorgeous, and that's all. And I actually went back to Grand Canyon again 2 years ago, which was the reason I went back there is because I wanted to look at that El Tovar hotel where it has where it has a dining restaurant and every gift shops at the El Tovar hotel, and 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 I'm sure during the winter there can be snow mountains there, and that's all. And when I let myself into the El Tovar Hotel, I was nervous at first, but I got in. But I wanted to take a peek in a restaurant, but I was kind of nervous that there's a waiter saying that we are you dining in or something. But um, Grand Canyon from here is like a 3.5 hour drive. Like, yeah, I suppose it's a 3 hour drive to the Grand Canyon. And oh, I went to this town where I never been to, is which is right past Globe on the 260 highway. Which was Safford. Um, Safford. Well, since when I took a drive there, that town looks like not really that much stores to go to, and that's all. And then I, first of all, went for a Dairy Queen Blizzard, and oh, I think I saw Domino's. Some like right before getting to Safford. Um, like I think I saw a Domino's somewhere in Safford. Either or Safford or Safford, and I don't think that's. I don't think. I don't think there was much else for me to do there, and I had nowhere to eat lunch, kind of at Safford or some, and it was like a 2.5 hour drive. It was like a fun drive, and that's all. But and also I took a day trip to Pine Top, which is Pine Top Lakeside. I went and cruised around there, and then I saw the family fun park where my dad, brother, and I went to the day after camping. Like that place where Cracker Jacks used to be in business, but Cracker Jacks is somehow out of business. That family fun park, it has miniature golf, go karts, and arcade games, and that's all. And I went back to Pine Top again because I wanted to look at the Scott Reservoir campground where my dad, brother, and I went camping there back in 2019. Since we went camping like the end of July of 2019 when I was 18, sometime after when I got my license, and and then the funniest thing is I tried to look at what spot we were at where we camped at, and I wasn't able to find it. And the only thing I found is that huge path canal that we went walking at the Scott Reservoir campground. Since we like took a walk, like it was like next to a lake. Since that lake is huge, and all of a sudden we heard like cows, or we heard like an elk, and basically there are gonna be horses. And the other side of the canal is like the big grass scenery with some trees and stuff like that. And then, by the way, when I went back there, I made a video of it on social media, and I was telling a story that how I used to watch We Clown around some of the clown videos, how someone is dressed up like any type of clown costume, how they don't talk, and then I wouldn't imagine being chased by a clown there, and and then Michael Myers showing up with a knife, and I think afterwards I looked at the Scott Reservoir campground. I had Domino's for lunch, which is I had their pasta, and there's a Domino's in Pine Top Lakeside, and when I used to go to Planet Fitness to work out, there's a Planet Fitness somewhere like in Show Low, and that's all where I see, and then there's like every certain stores in Pine Top, and that's all, and I think that's all. And now I'm going to experience some long distance driving. So first, I drove to California from Phoenix, which was with my dad, since we stayed one night in San Diego, and we did Belmont Park to ride the roller coaster, and we only did 2 rides so far, and we had a big slice of pizza somewhere at the Mission Beach, and that's all. And I drove to San Diego for the first time from Phoenix, and back to Phoenix from San Diego for the first time. And after San Diego, so many months later, since I wanted to do this drive to Colorado, which was to Durango, since I used to watch a video of the driving to Durango all the time, like how there's like a time lapse of a road trip video of Phoenix to Durango, Colorado. And I actually drove to Durango, Colorado since Durango, Colorado is a 7-hour drive from Arizona, from Phoenix and Scottsdale. And since I drove the whole way there, it was really fun. And by the way, when we went through New Mexico, like in Gallup, New Mexico, we saw a carnival somewhere in Gallup, New Mexico, where there was a carnival fair going on, and then we drove through Farmington, and that's all. And after New Mexico, we approached Colorado, and then we asked for a hotel. We asked for a hotel room with 2 beds, and then I think the employee accidentally gave us a room with 1 bed, since I wanted a bed to myself. And then we went back and talked to the employee in the lobby, and the person was nice to give us a 2-bedroom. And that's all. And instead of driving to the restaurant, what's the name of that restaurant where we went to, where I've been to a few times? What's the name of it? I think Saloon Restaurant. I can't remember. But I've been there twice with my grandparents, since 2 times we drove to Colorado from Arizona, since we stayed one night in Flagstaff, and then we drove to Durango from Flagstaff, since we drove through Tuba City and some others, and we took turns driving. And we went to the Durango, Colorado twice when there was snow, and we went sledding and stuff like that. And the second time we went to Durango, Colorado to sled, we took skiing lessons. And skiing was a little bit of a challenge, and that's all. Anyway, back to where I took my dad to Durango. And and then to drive on, and then I drove all the way back to home from Durango, and it's really a fun drive. And that's all. And the last time I did long distance driving to Colorado, which was I went with my grandpa to drive to Colorado to give one of his family members a car, how one of them needed a new car, which was the old Lexus that we've had for so many years. And that's all. And I've driven that Lexus a bunch of times, that black Lexus RX 400 hybrid. It was easy to drive, and I was able to handle driving SUVs like that. And that's all. And we drove, we drove 8 hours straight to Pagosa Springs, and we stayed one night there. And the next day we drove from Pagosa Springs to Colorado Springs. And then, all right, before I get into that, I'm going to add in that I drove the whole way 8 hours straight from Arizona, from home in Arizona to Pagosa Springs, and then I survived driving 8 hours straight. And the next day we drove to Colorado Springs to give someone the car. To one of my grandpa's family's house. And I drove to Colorado Springs from Pagosa Springs, and since last year I got to drive in Colorado for the first time. And I really had fun driving all the way to where we're staying in Colorado, and that's all. And then when we got to Colorado Springs, we stopped at Costco there, and got a supply, had our food supply run. And we got to that Costco in Colorado Springs, and that Costco parking lot was very crowded, with so many people, so many cars parked, and that's all. And the Costco gas station was super busy, and then there's this one time I got stressed out with a bunch of crowd when we got out of the Costco, and that's all. And then my grandpa was trying to show me where to go, and then I couldn't see the side mirror because his hand was on the way. And I'd rather not talk about what I was like, but I'd rather move on from it. But yeah, we were gonna get gas at Costco, but it was too crowded, too busy, and then we were over at one of his nieces and niece and nephew's house, great nephew's house, for quite some hours, and we had a talk, and that's all. But I'd rather not talk about what they do, though, because those are kind of personal information to them. But and then later in the day, so we tried taking someone to taking his great nephew to the DMV closer to where they were living. And I can't remember how we went back. We went back to go get something and came back to the DMV, and as soon as when we came back to the DMV in Colorado, they were closed. they closed off, and so we had to wait till the next day to get him registered in that Lexus, and that's all. And the next day afterwards, we went to a small funeral in Loveland, Colorado, and then I drove to Loveland from Colorado Springs, since the youngest has to be a long distance driver. And speaking of Loveland, while we were waiting for the family to show, oh yeah, here, before I talk about that, I want to talk about that my grandpa's niece had just passed away last year, since she had horrible diabetes, which was pretty a shame. And then the kids, some kids were there, were crying, and that's all, since I know I wasn't part of that funeral though. But anyway, when we were waiting in Loveland, my grandpa wanted to show me where he and his sister used to live in Loveland. And then he showed me which house they were living in Loveland, since I had to have him drive so he didn't have to navigate me. And that's all. And I get the little feeling of wanting to live in Colorado, but yeah. And his sister passed away 2 years ago, since she had somehow of a breathing problem, and that's all. And by the way, when my grandpa and his friend were on a hurry to Las Vegas one time, since they drove, they got into that horrible car accident. How he drove downhill way too fast, and as soon as when they hit the turn on the curb, they got off the track and rolled right around, and then got banned right around. And yeah, like, they were on a hurry to Las Vegas, and my grandpa didn't have his foot on the brake, since he's mentioned to me that he's count that as a mistake about driving long distance to drive downhill, since the lesson is we want to have our foot on the brake to drive downhill, and that's all. And I drove, and then after the funeral, we ate lunch somewhere at the restaurant. How we had a meetup. Oh yeah, my grandpa had one of his family member or friends flew from Idaho, and then I met them, and then when I ate lunch, when I sat with them and ate lunch, I got nervous about my hands because of hand trimmer. And my grandpa has mentioned to me that one of them have problems like that too when we were walking, and that's all. And after the restaurant, we drove back to Colorado Springs, since I was a long distance driver, and I drove all the way. Oh, I forgot to mention, when we drove to Loveland, we drove past Denver as a hometown, as a capital town of Colorado, and when we saw the Denver International Airport sign, and then as soon as when we were on our way back to Colorado Springs from Loveland, we legit saw the Denver buildings, and then saw every town of Colorado, Denver, Colorado, and I had a fun experience driving in Colorado, and then and that day we came home that night, since we flew home, and then Oh, and then afterwards, when we wait for everyone to show up back to Colorado Springs, we had to go to a different DMV by the Colorado Springs airport, because I think that's by the airport, how we had to get to the airport before our flight leaves. And then as soon as when I got back in my car at his house to drive home, it felt so different driving my car and then that black Lexus, since my horsepower is a strong horsepower for new drivers. If they push the gas like hard, it will boost. Yeah, my horsepower is pretty strong. And that's all. And last but not least, I drove to Las Vegas twice, which was first with my dad. We drove to Las Vegas. One day we drove to Las Vegas. I drove to Las Vegas, and the next day I drove back from Las Vegas. And we went to Las Vegas again for our anniversary trip this year, and that's all. Alright, I think that's all I wanted to mention about this video, how my experience was. And anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and thanks for watching, and hope you guys have a good day and a good rest of your day and good night tonight, and I'll see you guys next time.